the imperishable stars, which never set, symbols of eternity and the unending sky. You think about how many caravans, how many solitary travelers, how many centuries have looked up at the same nights, feeling both tiny and infinite in the same breath. Someone begins to speak in a low voice, telling a story that is less a narrative and more drifting thread of images. Of a fisherman who casts his nets not into the river, but into the night sky, pulling down stars to light his path home. Of a cat who walked the desert for 100 years, leaving paw prints in the dunes that never faded. You lose track of where the story ends and the sound of the wind begins. The oasis seemed to hold its own pulse. You can hear the water shifting in its narrow bend, the occasional whisper of fronds brushing together, the muted scrape of someone moving their mat closer to the warmth of a dying fire. The desert beyond the palms is silent, but not empty. It watches, as it always does, from just beyond the reach of the light. Hori passes by once more, this time carrying a small clay bowl filled with something dark and glossy. He offers you a pinch. Candied dates, he explains, boiled in honey until the skin splits. The sweetness is almost too much after the day's salt and sour hibiscus, but it lingers in your mouth like a soft ember, warming you from within. The last thing before sleep should taste of home, he says, though again, you're not sure if he's speaking only of food. When you finally lie down, the mat feels like it shaped itself to your body. The breeze from the palms touches your cheek. Your eyes grow heavy, but you keep them open a little longer, watching the stars sway ever so slightly with the fronds above. In that moment, the vastness of the Sahara feels less like an expanse to be crossed and more like a great sleeping animal, breathing slow and steady, content to let you rest so long as you respect its rhythm. Sleep comes gently without force, as though it has been waiting just beyond the edge of the firelight for you to be ready. And in the last fragment of waking thought, you remember what Hori said earlier about the desert giving back what it took, and you wonder what it will take tomorrow, and what it might return when the night comes again. You wake the sky that is not yet day but no longer night. The narrow seam between darkness and light has a sound to it, softer than dawn birdsong, quieter than a sleeping cat, as if the desert itself has drawn a breath and is holding it. The air is cool, the kind of cold that feels delicate, easily bruised by too much movement. Hori is already awake. He moves like a shadow between the sleeping mats, checking packs, adjusting the ties on water skins. The fires have burned down to faint, glowing embers, and no one steers them. There will be no morning smoke. It would rise too high and give away your position to anyone watching from far dunes. The oasis feels different in this light. The palms are silhouettes, their fronds unmoving, etched against a sky that fades from ink blue to dusty pearl. The water is a strip of polished metal, cold to the touch, catching the first fragile reflections from the east. Around it, the ground is damp enough that your footsteps make no sound. This is the hour the Egyptians favored for travel, not just because it was cool, but because the light was kind, enough to see by, but not yet sharp enough to clear from every grain of sand. In these early steps, every breath you take is a gift stored from the night. The coolness cling to the inside of your lungs. Hori calls it carrying the night with you. and you realize he means it literally. You move in such a way that the memory of cool stays in your body as long as possible. Slow, slow exhale, steady pace. No sudden burst of speed to make the sweat rise. Even the animals move differently now, their hooves pressing carefully into the sand, their ears pricked forward. The desert has not yet woken fully, and they seem to know it is best to pass through quietly before dusk. The tricks for holding onto this cool are deceptively simple. Robes remain wrapped tightly, not loosened, so the body heat stays inside and does not escape too quickly. A counterintuitive idea until you feel the morning breeze and realize how easily it could strip the warmth away, leaving you chilled before the sun even arrives. Water is slipped in tiny measures, swish in the mouth before swallowing, so it cools you twice. And when the first real beam of sunlight spills over the horizon, you do not stop to watch them. You keep walking, letting your back take the heat while your eyes remains in shadow. The line of palms at the edge of the oasis shrinks behind you until it is no more than as much of the horizon. Ahead, the dunes catch the light, the gold deepening, the shadows growing long and sharp. The air changes almost imperceptibly, a single degree warmer, the breeze thinning, and you know that the day has begun to claim its crown. By the time the sun is in a full disk in the sky, you are well into the day's rounds. Hori calls for a halt, not because you are tired, but because the cold you carried from the night is gone. This is the moment to rest again, to find the shade of a low ridge, and wait out the climb of the heat. In this rhythm, walk, rest. The desert becomes less of an adversary and more of a partner in the journey. As you settle into the lee of a dune, the night feels far away, but in the weight of your robes, in the memory of that still air before sunrise, in the lingering taste of cold water, it is still with you. And perhaps that is the real lesson the Egyptians knew. You cannot keep the night forever, but you can carry its touch a little longer into the day. When you think of the Sahara, you might imagine an endless challenge, a place to be endured, survived, conquered. But to the Egyptians who lived in this shadow, it was something else entirely. A teacher, a clock, a partner in the slow exchange between heat and cool, day and night. They learned to move when the desert was generous, to rest when it was not, to take what was given without asking for more. The hacks, the tricks, clever workarounds, they were not inventions so much as observations. How the wind remembers the night in the hollows between dunes. How the first light touches the land more gently than the last. How water tastes different when it has passed through clay. How shade moves and lengthens like a living thing. We live now with switches and dials, with machines that can summon cool air on command. But here, in the oldest desert, the air still moves at its own pace. The sun still rises on its own terms, and the cool of night still slips into the morning like a whispered gift. And maybe that is the greatest endurance of all, to live inside of this rhythm, to learn it well enough that you no longer resist it, but trust it, to wake before the sun, to walk in the half light, to carry the night with you for as long as you can.